High above the green farms of Calderon 7, the sky tore open. 42 Drathari warships dropped out of subspace at once. The flash of their arrival was so bright that farmers down on the surface stopped their tractors and looked up. Children pointed. Dogs barked. The light stayed in the sky for almost a full minute, like a second sun that did not want to leave. Then the ships became visible. Black metal, sharp edges, hulls covered in deep red marks that looked like dried blood. Each ship was the size of a city. Together they formed a wall across the upper sky. The Drathari 6th Fleet had arrived. On the bridge of the flagship, High Overlord Vasthrek sat on his command throne and yawned. He had done this 93 times before. 93 quiet little worlds. 93 quick conquests. 93 boring victory reports written by tired clerks. He was already thinking about dinner. "Begin the standard message," he said. Speaker Kelmaru, a thin Drathari woman in a long gray robe, stepped forward and opened the broadcast channel. Her voice went out across every radio on the planet below. "People of Calderon 7, you are now property of the Drathari Empire. You have one rotation to surrender. After that, your cities will burn. This is your only warning." She closed the channel. She waited for the screaming, the crying, the desperate begging that always came after. Nothing came. Kelmaru looked at her console. The signal had reached the planet. The humans down there could hear her. They simply did not answer. She tried again. Different language, same message, still nothing. A junior officer near the back of the bridge cleared his throat. "Overlord, the humans on the surface are continuing their work. They are not running, they are not hiding, they are just farming." Vasthrek laughed. It was a wet, ugly sound. Primitives, they do not understand what is about to happen to them. Fine, let them dig their own graves. He waved his clawed hand. "Begin firing positions. We bombard in 6 hours." The fleet began to move into attack formation. Slow, heavy, confident. The Drathari did not believe in stealth or speed. They believed in size and noise and fear. 6 hours passed. In those 6 hours, several strange things happened that nobody on the bridge paid attention to. First, the temperature on the flagship dropped by half a degree. The ship systems blamed it on a power flux and corrected it. Second, a sensor officer in the lower decks reported a ghost reading in the middle of the fleet formation. His superior told him to recalibrate his equipment and stop wasting time. Third, the gravity inside one of the cargo holds shifted slightly, as if a very heavy object had passed nearby. The duty officer blamed it on a faulty plate and ordered repairs. And fourth, for one single moment, the lights on the bridge of every single Drathari ship dimmed, just for a heartbeat. Then they came back to full power. Nobody mentioned it. These were not power problems. They were footprints. Something enormous was walking through the Drathari fleet, and the Drathari were too proud to notice. The 6 hours ended. Vasthrek stood up from his throne with a satisfied smile. "Bombardment fleet. Take aim at the largest city. We start with the capital as always. I want to see it burning before I eat my dinner." The weapons officers prepared the great orbital cannons, targeting beams locked onto the city below. Power levels climbed. Fingers hovered over firing controls. Then every targeting screen on the bridge went white. Vasthrek frowned. "What is happening?" The weapons officer stared at her screen, confused. "Overlord, the targeting system says. It says there is something between us and the planet." "What, another ship, a satellite?" "No, Overlord, the system says. It says there is a mass the size of a city sitting in the middle of our formation, right now." The bridge went silent. Vasthrek turned his head slowly. "Show me." She tried. She really tried. But every camera she pointed at the empty space simply showed empty space. Stars, black, nothing. and yet the gravity sensors screamed that something huge was sitting there, less than 4 kilometers from the flagship's hull. A second officer called out, "Overlord, power levels in the fleet are dropping. Engineering says something is pulling energy from our reactors. They cannot find the source." A third officer, "Overlord, our radios are picking up a signal. It is not coming from outside the fleet. It is coming from inside, like the source is sitting between our ships." Kelmaru looked at her own readings. Her hands began to shake. She had read old reports, banned reports, about a species on the outer edge of the empire that had once disappeared from the records 300 years ago. The Drathari archives had marked them as primitives and forgotten them. She whispered the name to herself, Earth. Vasthrek rose from his throne. For the first time in 20 years of command, his hand trembled where it rested on the hilt of his ceremonial blade. He looked out the viewport at the empty space where his sensors said a giant was hiding. "Whatever you are," he said quietly, "show yourself." The empty space did not answer. But somewhere inside it, somebody was watching. Somebody had been watching the entire 6 hours. Somebody had heard every order, every laugh, every threat that Vasthrek had made. And somebody was almost ready to speak. The silence on the Drathari bridge was the worst silence any of them had ever felt. Every officer was staring at empty space that, according to every sensor, was not empty at all, empty space that had a mass, a shape, a heartbeat of power that came and went like slow breathing. Then every single radio on every single ship in the Drathari fleet turned on at the same time. Not just the command channels, not just the military lines, every radio, including the small personal ones inside the helmets of the soldiers, including the entertainment speakers in the crew kitchens, including the emergency beacons inside the escape pods that were supposed to be sealed off. 42 warships, 108,000 Drathari crew, all heard the same voice at the same time. It was a human voice, male, calm, a little tired even, the way a teacher sounds when a student has done something silly for the 3rd time that week. "Drathari 6th Fleet, this is Captain Daniel Holt of the Earth Warship Severance. You are inside space that is protected by Earth. You will turn around and leave. You have 10 minutes. The voice paused, then it added almost as an afterthought, "Please do not make me count." The channel closed. For 3 full seconds, nobody on the Drathari flagship moved. Then everybody started shouting at once. "Where is the signal coming from? Trace it. Find the ship. It is impossible to broadcast on those frequencies. They are sealed." Vasthrek roared over all of them, "Silence." The bridge went still. He turned to his communication officer. "Where did the signal originate?" The officer's voice came out as a squeak. "Overlord, the signal came from inside our formation. The source is less than 4 kilometers from this ship, maybe closer." "Then point a camera at it." "I have, Overlord. There is nothing there." Vasthrek bared his teeth. He was a creature who had killed 3 of his own officers this month for failing him. He was not used to being told that the impossible was happening. He turned to Speaker Kelmaru. You said the name Earth. Explain." Kelmaru hesitated. Then she pulled up the old archive on her data slate. She held it out so he could see. "Earth, Overlord, catalogued by our scouts 312 years ago, Tier 4 primitives, single planet, no interstellar travel, the file says." She stopped, she read it again, her stomach turned to ice. "The file says, no further observation needed." Vasthrek snatched the slate from her hands. He read it. Then he threw it across the bridge so hard that it shattered against the wall. 300 years, he hissed. 300 years and nobody checked on them again. A young officer near the navigation panel, a boy really, no more than 20 in human years, raised a shaking hand. "Overlord, The voice said 10 minutes. We are now at 9 minutes and 20 seconds. Vastrek snarled at him, "Be quiet, child." But the boy was right. The clock on the bridge wall was counting down. Everybody could see it. Vastrek straightened his back. He would not be threatened by ghosts. He would not be ordered around by a voice. He was a high overlord of the Drathari Empire. His ancestors had burned 1,000 worlds. He would not retreat from one. "All ships," he commanded. "Fire pattern crimson web. Saturate the empty space at the center of our formation. Empty your weapons into it. I want every meter of that area filled with fire." The order went out. 42 Drathari warships turned their guns inward, toward each other, toward the empty space between them. Then they fired. The void lit up. Plasma bolts, energy beams, heavy explosive rounds. Enough firepower to crack a small moon poured into the dark center of the formation for 10 full seconds. When the smoke cleared, there was nothing. No wreckage, no debris, no damaged ship falling away, just empty space exactly the same as before, as if every weapon they had fired had passed through fog. And on the far side of the formation, 2 Drathari cruisers were burning. Their own friendly fire had crossed the empty middle and struck them on the other side. The bridge was silent again. Then the voice came back. "That was rude," Captain Holt said, still calm, still tired. "You just hurt your own ships. 8 minutes." Vastrek went very pale, which on a Drathari looked like gray-green. Far away on the bridge of the invisible warship Severance, Lieutenant Armin Reyes leaned back in his chair and sipped from a small black mug. Coffee. Strong. The kind that woke you up properly. He looked at Captain Holt, who was standing quietly at the front of the bridge with his hands behind his back. "Sir," Reyes said, "are we really going to wait the full 10 minutes? They just shot at us." Holt did not turn around. "We gave them 10 minutes, Reyes. They tried to kill us. They tried and failed. That does not change what we said." Reyes grinned. "You are a very patient man, Captain." "No," Holt said softly. "I am a man who keeps his word. That is the difference between us and them. They lie, we do not. If we say 10 minutes, it is 10 minutes. He glanced at the time display. 8 minutes left. Let us see what they do with them. 8 minutes is a very long time when you are afraid. The Drathari crews learned this lesson together. On every ship in the fleet, soldiers stood at their stations and watched the clock and tried not to look at each other. The bridge officers tried to look brave. The engineers below decks tried to look busy. The gunners tried to look ready, but everybody was thinking the same thing. The voice had said, "Please." A creature that could hide a city-sized warship inside their formation. A creature that could speak through every locked radio in the fleet. A creature that could not be hit by every gun they had. And it had said, "Please." That was the part that made them most afraid. On the flagship, High Overlord Vastrek paced back and forth in front of his throne. His tail dragged on the floor behind him. His claws clicked against the metal. He was trying to think. He could order another attack, but the last one had only damaged his own ships. He could order a retreat, but the Empire executed officers who retreated without permission. The Empress herself had a special chamber for cowards. He could try to talk, but talking was for diplomats and weaklings, and he was neither. So he paced, and the clock counted down. At the 2-minute mark, the voice returned. But this time it did not speak to the fleet. It came only on Vastrek's private command channel, the channel that only he and his 3 most trusted captains knew the code for. "Overlord Vastrek," the human said. The voice was softer now, almost gentle. "I want to show you something. I am going to turn off one of your ships, just one, the smallest one, the one furthest from any of your people. Nobody will die, nobody will even be hurt. Watch." Vastrek opened his mouth to curse, but no sound came out. At the very back of the Drathari formation, far from the fighting, far from the flagship, there was a small destroyer called the Bone Lash. It was an old ship, a patrol vessel really. It had a crew of 40. The Bone Lash simply stopped. Its engines did not explode, its hull did not break. There was no flash of light, no boom of weapons. The ship just went quiet, its engines died, its weapons powered down. Its lights went off one deck at a time in a smooth wave from the front to the back. Then the main power went out. Then the backup power. Then even the small emergency lamps faded. And yet somehow, the life support stayed on. The crew inside the Bone Lash could still breathe. They could still walk around. They had their personal flashlights. The artificial gravity was still working at a low level. They were fine. They were just sitting inside a dark, dead ship that would not respond to any control. Whoever had turned off the Bone Lash had turned off exactly the right things. Like a doctor knowing exactly which nerve to touch to make a hand fall asleep without harming the patient. On the flagship bridge, the officers stared at the readings in horror. Vastrek staggered back one step. His tail went still. The human voice came again on the private channel, still gentle. "That is what I can do, Overlord. Now imagine if I wanted to hurt people. I do not want to. I really do not want to. Please take your fleet and go home." The line went quiet. Speaker Kelmaru was looking at the dead destroyer on the main view screen. Her hands were shaking. She was a smart woman. She had read history. She had read the old reports of the empires that came before the Drathari and how they had fallen. She turned to Vastrek slowly. "Overlord," she said, "I must speak, please." He looked at her with hate in his eyes, but he was too shaken to silence her. She continued, "Overlord, they are not attacking us. Do you understand that? They have not killed a single one of our people. They are showing us mercy. And mercy from a creature this strong is the most frightening thing in the galaxy, because it means they could destroy us at any moment, but they choose not to. We must withdraw. We must withdraw now." The bridge was silent. Then Vastrek roared. He moved faster than she expected. The back of his clawed hand struck her across the face. She fell to the floor. Blood ran from her cheek. "Coward," he screamed. "Dog, traitor." He turned to the bridge crew, eyes wild. "Full assault, every ship, every weapon, now." Far away, on the invisible warship Severance, Commander Rena Vance watched the readings on her tactical display. She had seen Vastrek strike the speaker through the listening devices the humans had quietly placed inside the Drathari fleet. She turned to Captain Holt. "He hit her, sir." Holt closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, something in his face had changed. Not anger, something quieter, sadder. "Lieutenant Reyes," he said. "Aye, Captain." "Disable the fleet. All of it. Take your time. Be careful. No deaths." "Aye, sir." Reyes set down his coffee mug. He cracked his fingers. He looked at his targeting board, where 42 Drathari warships were already plotted and waiting. "Sir," he said, "may I suggest a song?" "You may not." "Working quietly, understood, sir." And then the Severance went to work. There's a way of doing very serious work that looks, from the outside, completely boring. This was true of the Severance that day. To any Drathari who could have seen the inside of the human bridge, it would have looked like nothing was happening. No flashing lights, no shouting, no alarms. 3 officers at 3 quiet stations. A captain standing with his hands behind his back. A pot of coffee on a side table, still warm. But the Drathari fleet was being taken apart. Lieutenant Reyes worked with both hands on his control panel. He moved like a piano player. His fingers tapped, paused, slid, tapped again. On his screen, ship after ship was being marked with a small green check. The first ship to go dark was a cruiser called the Iron Tooth. It was the largest command vessel in the right wing of the formation. Reyes did not blow it up. He did not even scratch its paint. He simply reached out through the strange, invisible weapons of the Severance and turned off its command center. Just the command center. The rest of the ship still had power. The engines still worked. The life support still worked. But the captain on the bridge could no longer give any orders. His controls did nothing. His screens went blank. The Iron Tooth became a body without a brain. 40 seconds later, the same thing happened to the left-wing command ship, then the rear support cruiser, then the two communications relays, then, one by one, the heavy weapons platforms. Reyes worked through the list at the speed of a man checking off groceries. 40 seconds per ship. On the Drathari flagship, panic was spreading. Officers were shouting into radios that did not connect to anything. Captains were screaming orders to ships that no longer received them. The fleet, which only minutes before had been a single proud weapon, was breaking into 42 confused, lonely pieces. Commander Vance walked over to Reyes' station. She looked at his work and nodded. "Good, take the weapons next. Leave their engines for last." "Aye, ma'am." "Why engines last?" asked a young officer at the navigation board. It was his first mission. His name was Kim, and he had been nervous all morning. Vance answered without looking at him. "Because we want them to be able to go home, Kim. A ship without weapons is humbled. A ship without engines is a coffin floating in space. We do not make coffins today." Kim nodded slowly. He was learning. Back on the flagship, Vasthrek was no longer roaring. He was no longer packing. He was simply standing at the center of his bridge, staring at the main view screen with empty eyes. Around him, his fleet was dying in slow motion. Not exploding, not burning, just going quiet. Ship after ship after ship. Speaker Kelmaru sat on the floor where he had knocked her down. Blood had dried on her cheek. She was watching her tablet, which somehow still worked. She was counting the ships that had gone dark. 35. 36. 37. The pattern was so clean, so calm, so polite that she wanted to cry. The humans were taking their fleet apart like a parent removing a dangerous toy from a child's hands. Gently, carefully, with no anger at all. That was the worst part. There was no anger in it. Anger she could have understood. Anger she could have respected. But this was something else. This was the patience of a creature so much stronger than her people that it did not even need to be upset. The last ship to be touched was the flagship itself. When the moment came, every light on the Drathari bridge flickered. The main weapons display went dark. The shield controls went dark. The targeting systems went dark. But the air kept flowing. The gravity kept working. The communication channel for emergencies stayed on. The flagship was now a fortress without arrows, a castle without walls. It could still fly, it could still breathe, but it could not fight. Then the human voice returned for the final time. "Overlord Vasthrek, your turn. I would like you to surrender now. If you surrender, every Drathari in this fleet goes home alive. Every single one. Not one death, I promise. If you do not surrender, I will gently tow your entire fleet to the nearest neutral system and turn you over to the Galactic Council for trial. Your choice. Take your time." Vastthrek's chest rose and fell. He looked down at the ceremonial blade at his side. It was made of black metal and shaped like a curved fang. His grandfather had carried it. His grandfather's grandfather had carried it. He had killed enemies with it. He had killed his own officers with it. He drew it now. "Helmsman," he said in a voice as cold as deep space, "set a ramming course. We die with honor. We crash this ship into the empty space where the humans are hiding." The helmsman did not move. Vasthrek turned slowly. "I said, helmsman, set the course." The helmsman, a young Drathari woman with a scarred face, looked up at her overlord. She had served under him for 6 years. She had watched him execute 3 officers this month. She had watched him strike Speaker Kelmaru today. She took her hands off the controls. She placed them flat on her console. She looked him in the eyes. No, she said. The bridge held its breath. Then one by one the other officers on the bridge set down their weapons. The weapons officer first, then the communication officer, then the shield officer, then the navigation officer. A whole bridge of Drathari soldiers, in silent agreement, refused. Vastrek stood alone, blade in his hand, surrounded by his own crew. Speaker Kelmaru rose slowly from the floor. She walked to the communication console, past the Overlord, past the blade. She opened the channel to the Severance. "Captain Holt," she said. Her voice shook, but her words were clear. "The Sixth Fleet of the Drathari Empire surrenders. Please, be kind to my people." The human voice answered, and it was warm. "We were always going to be, Speaker, always." The first thing Speaker Kelmaru saw was a shape in the dark. It happened slowly. The empty space at the center of the broken Drathari formation seemed to bend, the way water bends light, and then a shadow appeared. Long, smooth, dark blue, almost black, edges that were soft instead of sharp. No big spikes, no red marks, no ugly weapons hanging off the sides like teeth on a beast. The human warship Severance allowed itself to be seen. It was beautiful. That was the word that came to Kelmaru's mind, and it shocked her. She was a creature of an empire that built warships to look terrifying. Big jagged shapes, hulls painted in blood, cannons that pointed out at every angle so the enemy could count them. Drathari ships were designed to make you wet yourself before you even fought. The Severance looked like a quiet animal sleeping in the dark, a whale, a long, smooth, patient thing. Its lights were soft and warm. Its hull was curved and clean. The only marking on it was a small blue circle near the front with a thin white ring around it, the symbol of Earth. Several Drathari officers on the bridges of the disabled fleet began to weep when they saw it. They did not know why. Maybe it was the relief of being alive. Maybe it was the shame of being defeated by something so calm. Maybe it was simply that they had never seen a warship that did not want to scare them. Vastrek dropped his ceremonial blade. It clattered on the floor. His own crew watched him with eyes that were no longer afraid of him. A small shuttle left the side of the Severance. It crossed the empty space between the ships and docked smoothly with the Drathari flagship. There was no fight. There were no soldiers, just one shuttle and one man inside it. When the airlock opened, Captain Daniel Holt stepped out. He was not what Kelmaru had expected. He was not tall. He was not huge with muscles. He wore a simple dark uniform with no medals on it. His hair was gray at the sides. His eyes were tired and brown and kind. He looked like a teacher or a doctor or a man who fixed boats in a small harbor. He carried no weapon. Two Drathari guards moved to block him. He held up a hand and smiled. "Please," he said, "I am only here to talk." The guards looked at Vastrek. Vastrek did not look back at them. He was staring at the floor, broken. The guards stepped aside. Holt walked up to Kelmaru. He stopped a respectful distance away. He saw the blood on her cheek. His face softened. "Speaker," he said, "are you all right?" She nodded, even though she was not. "May I ask you a question?" she said. "Of course." "Why?" He tilted his head a little. "Why what, Speaker? Why all of this? Why the patience? Why the warning? Why the mercy? You could have destroyed our fleet in 1 minute. You could have killed every one of us. We deserved it. We came here to burn this planet. Why did you choose to be kind?" Holt was quiet for a long moment. Then he sat down on a metal bench near the wall and looked up at her. He patted the seat next to him. After a pause, she sat down beside him. The High Overlord of the Drathari Empire stood 10 feet away, broken, watching. "A long time ago," Holt began, "Earth was a small place. We had just learned to fly between the stars. We were proud of ourselves. We thought we were ready for the galaxy. Then a ship came to us. It was a strange ship, beat up, broken, almost dead. Inside were a few thousand people from a species we had never met. They were running from an empire much like yours. That empire had hunted them across many systems. They had nowhere left to go. He smiled, but it was a sad smile. They expected us to turn them away, or to use them, or to sell them back to their hunters for a profit. Many other species would have, but we did not. We took them in. We hid their ship. We fed their people. We built them homes. We listened to their stories, and we asked them very politely where the empire that hurt them lived. Kelmaru's eyes widened. What did you do? We built ships, Holt said. Better ships, ships nobody could see. It took us many years. Then we went to find that empire. You destroyed them. He shook his head. No, we disarmed them, every warship, every weapon. One by one, over 10 years, we did not kill their soldiers. We did not burn their cities. We just took apart their ability to hurt anyone ever again. Today, that species lives on 3 quiet planets. They farm, they sing, they write books. They have not hurt anyone in 300 years. He looked at her. They asked us after we were done why we did it. We told them what I am going to tell you now. Somebody helped us once when we were small. Earth chose a long time ago to spend the rest of forever paying that kindness back. To every bullied world we can find. We are not soldiers, speaker. We are debt collectors. We collect a debt of kindness and we pay it out, one bully at a time. Kelmaru sat very still. Across the bridge, Vastrek sank to his knees on the cold metal floor. His own crew did not help him up. Holt stood. He held out his hand to Kelmaru. Your fleet will be towed to a neutral station. Your people will be fed, treated, and sent home. The Galactic Council will speak with your empire about what happened today. We are not asking for territory. We are not asking for money. We are only asking that the Drathari leave Calderon 7 and every world like it alone. He paused, then added gently, and if you ever need help, speaker, from us, from Earth, any time, just send the word, we will come. She took his hand. News in space moves slower than light, but faster than fear. The story of what happened at Calderon 7 left the system inside a single week. The Drathari Empire tried very hard to bury it. They told the official media that the 6th Fleet had been lost in a training accident. They told the noble houses that there had been a minor border issue, now resolved. They told the Empress herself that nothing serious had occurred. But the truth has a way of leaking out of even the tightest bottle. Merchant ships carried it first. They had been at the neutral station when the Drathari fleet was towed in. They had seen the long, sad line of dead warships floating behind a small, beautiful human vessel like ducklings behind their mother. They told the story in every bar in every port they visited. After the merchants came the prisoners. The Drathari crews of the 6th Fleet were sent home, alive and well, just as Captain Holt had promised. They did not want to talk about what had happened. They had been told by the Empire to keep silent. But silence is hard when your own children ask why you came home without your ship, without your weapons, and without your pride. So one by one the soldiers spoke, to their families first, then to their neighbors, then to the markets, then to the temples. The story spread from village to village like a soft rain. 42 warships, no deaths, 1 human ship. The empire that had ruled 4,000 systems for 900 years had been undressed in a single afternoon and sent home without a scratch. That last part was the part that frightened the imperial court most of all. If the humans had killed Drathari soldiers, the empire could have called for revenge. The noble houses would have shouted for war. The empress would have raised an army of 10 million. They could have rallied the people around grief and rage, the way empires always do. But the humans had not killed anyone. They had simply taken away the empire's ability to hurt others. There was no enemy to hate, there was only a lesson. And the lesson said this: the Drathari were not, and had never been, the strongest creatures in the galaxy. They had only been the loudest in a very quiet neighborhood. Once that lesson was learned, it could not be unlearned. The first world to ask for Earth's protection was a small mining moon called Vesca. Its people sent a quiet message to the neutral station. "We do not want to be Drathari property anymore. Can you help?" Earth sent one ship. That was all, one ship, invisible, quiet, patient. It sat in orbit around Vesca for a single week. During that week, 3 Drathari patrol vessels arrived to punish the moon for asking to leave. None of those patrol vessels ever fired a shot. They simply went dark, one by one, and were towed back to their own border, gentle as a parent carrying sleeping children. The Drathari pulled their forces back from Vesca after that. The second world was a farming planet called Olentova. Earth sent one ship there too. The story repeated. So did the result. Then there were 6 worlds, then 12, then 30. Within 2 years, half the Drathari Empire had politely seceded. Not violently, not with explosions or revolutions, bureaucratically, with paperwork. Worlds simply filled out forms, sent them to the Galactic Council, and joined a new arrangement that they called the Calderon Compact. It was a loose alliance of small civilizations under Earth's quiet protection. The Drathari court raged. The Empress executed her advisors. The noble houses fought each other for blame, but none of it brought back a single world. You cannot bomb a planet that has filed paperwork. The Galactic Council watches that kind of thing very closely. And when the Drathari did try to bomb a seceding world just once in the first month of the secessions, an Earth warship was there before the first weapon could fire. The Drathari fleet went dark. The planet was untouched. After that, the Drathari stopped trying. Speaker Kelmaru was not a speaker anymore. She was an ambassador. She had been chosen by the new Calderon Compact to represent the seceded worlds at every meeting of the Galactic Council. She had a small office in the neutral station, and a small staff, and a quiet life. One evening, 2 years after the day everything changed, she stood on the bridge of the Severance again. She had been invited. Captain Holt was an old friend now. They had worked together on many small problems across the rim of human-allied space. The bridge was quiet. Most of the crew had gone off shift. Only Captain Holt remained, standing at the window with his hands behind his back. He held 2 small cups in his hands. Tea. Warm. Earth had given her a taste for it. He handed her one. She accepted with a smile. She had been thinking, on the way over, of a question she had wanted to ask him for 2 years. "Captain," she said, "what is the name of Earth's military doctrine? You must have one. Every empire has one. Ours was called the doctrine of the Iron Crown. The Veccan had the doctrine of the Burning Wave. What is yours?" Holt was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed, a small, soft, surprised laugh. "We do not have one speaker." "Then how do you decide what to do?" He thought about it. "We try," he said slowly, "to be the kind of neighbors we wished we had back when we were small. That is all. It is not a doctrine. It is just a memory of what kindness felt like, the first time somebody showed it to us. We try not to forget." She sipped her tea. The stars outside the window were very bright. For the first time in 900 years, the rim of the galaxy felt quiet in a way that did not mean fear. It felt quiet in a way that meant peace. Far away on a small world she had never heard of, a desperate civilization sent out its first message to the stars. "Help us, please, anyone." The Severance turned silently in the dark. Earth was listening. Earth always was.